Thank you all very much. As you know, at last week's Board of Education meeting, we had the full presentation of the operating and capital budgets by Dr. Adamowski and by our finance director, Tom Hamilton. Took a number of questions from board members, and the board also received this week the same budget information formatted into the new format that we've been using the last couple of years that gives us sort of a higher level summary of that board proposed budget. As you know, it also was not just the operating budget, but also I shouldn't say preliminary, it's the capital budget, although many of the numbers in the capital budget are numbers that anticipate elaboration when the facility study is incorporated into our master plan. As many of you know, the Facilities Committee, I think, starting tomorrow, Mike?
Yes.
Starting tomorrow is going to have a series of 3 separate meetings to review the rather voluminous contents of the facilities study, which has now been completed. Once the committee has had a chance to review that study, there'll be a special Board of Ed meeting where the whole board will review it, and then we are also planning to have a joint meeting with the Common Council in February to review that facilities plan with them and explain how it fits into our capital budget request. We're also anticipating at the end of this month or the beginning of February having a joint meeting with the council to go over our operating budget request, and we're in the process of scheduling both of those meetings now. So at this time, the next item on the agenda is public comments on the recommended budget. Did we have a sign-in sheet? Do we have a sign-in sheet today?
It's in the back.
Okay. Let's snag the sign-up sheet. Alrighty. And Mr. Barbas will run the public comment section of the meeting.
Okay, I'll call out your name if you could come up. If you recall, it's 3 minutes you're entitled to. And I'll put my hand up after 2.5 minutes. And then at 3 minutes, I will call for you to wrap up your comments. So our first speaker is Jeff Spar. Please announce your name and your address for the record, please.
Okay. Jeffrey Spar, Stony Brook Road, Norwalk, Connecticut, here on behalf of Norwalk Sped Partners. I just wanted to give you first of all, I always want to thank everybody who's on the board for serving our community, and I appreciate that. Just wanted to go through a timeline. In the fall, in 2007, 2008, the Cambridge report came out. My son was in first grade. 2008, 2009, correct report number 1 came out, said that the Cambridge report hadn't been followed. My son was in second grade. In 2011, 2012, correct report number 2 came out. My son was in 5th grade. And this year, the 3rd correct report came out, and my son is now in 9th grade. With this budget that's coming out, I want to make sure that the special ed department is not vilified or scapegoated. We know that there's going to be a large amount that's going to be part of your ask to the Common Council. And we, the parents, want to make sure that again, it's not scapegoated or vilified. We understand that there's going to be a large chunk of change, but you can't blame a car if it's not operating correctly if you fail to change the oil or do any kind of repairs for a decade. We're at a point where the car hasn't been maintained. It's not Dr. Adamowski's fault. I know Dr. Adamowski was very encouraging when you first came in. One of the first things that you said to us was that in many ways you judge a district by how well it takes care of its most vulnerable students. And that's a good litmus test for the district as a whole, because as you know, under the universal design of education, to the extent that you are able to educate those who need the special assistance, you're going to elevate all of them. I want to know that a lot has been focused on the parents and the out-of-district placements, and I don't want to let you know from my personal experience, no parent wants to send their child out of the district. Much better for them to stay in the district if they feel they can get the education. So it's not a situation of parents saying, I just want to go for the sake of going. Much would prefer to stay in. I wanted to emphasize to you that you as a board should use us as parents and voters and taxpayers as your best friend and best ally. If there are items that you want to have promoted to the Common Council, come to us. You know, we're willing, ready, and able to step up and to go. You don't have to go it alone, okay? We're behind you on this. So if there's a program, all we need from you is information. If there's a program you feel is in jeopardy, let us know in plain terms why you think it's important. Let us know where it fits into your grand scheme. You're not going to turn everything around. This school district is going to be turned around more like a large oil tanker, not like a little ski boat. It's going to have to start turning in Greenland in order to get to Europe. It's not going to be a quick fix, okay? So I'm telling you to ask us. I'm here to ask you to stay the course, to rely on us. I don't know if it was Tom Hamilton that said it. Maybe it's another sage. You can't always get what you want. I know maybe that was Mick Jagger. He was in first grade. You were in first grade when that came out. But,
I remember that song when it came out.
But you can't always get what you want, but you get what you need. And we need to have special ed improvement in the city. What you need to have is you need to have a lot of these out-of-district placements brought in, and it's going to be a long-term fix. It can't start by having somebody who's in high school all of a sudden change. You have to start at the bottom and move forward. And my last word is, count on us, and don't be afraid to enlist our help. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Joanna Cooper.
Hello. I want to thank all of you for your work on the board. I'm here also for special education, and like Mr. Spar, I've lived to see a generation of kids under the Craig and Cambridge reports, 15 years in fact. So I'm hoping that our journey hasn't been for naught, and that you will follow the superintendent's recommendations for funding the special education budget. And I didn't get to look at it, but I'm sure that it follows the Craig report recommendations. The Craig report is excellent, and I find that it is absolutely right on target. And it isn't the first time that it's on target. I want you to think about the national numbers of school children in special ed today is 14%, and that would be true of Norwalk. So that's a large population of students that have been affected, and we can't afford to lose another generation or another teacher. I really truly believe that by making our special education system stronger and supporting our teachers and our kids, that we will make the system better for all students. Because remember, special education isn't just for those who appear most vulnerable and have disabilities that make them struggle to learn. It also includes the gifted. So it's really about going outside of the box, thinking outside of the box, and going the extra mile to get these kids to learn the curriculum. So I really believe that if you strengthen special ed, that you'll be on the cutting edge of education, because the population today really truly demands individual kind of inquiry-based studying and things like that. And I'm also asking that you support the things that are stressing our special education system. And that would be Head Start. The Head Start program in this town has been really a mess for a long time, and all those kids are there to receive early intervention. And they haven't had quality intervention for years. The SRBI, the tiered interventions in regular education, the new special ed preschool, and I thank you for your time and efforts.
Thank you. Our next speaker is John Mosby.
Good evening tonight, board. My name is John Mosby, and I live about 15 Addison Avenue, South Norwalk, Connecticut. I'm gonna be very brief here tonight. On the meeting we had down at the Norwalk Library, I was very disappointed at that meeting at the way I feel the public was treated, and I want that on the record. I felt that we should have been able to have the public to be able to say something. And for 2 hours, you all, the board, went over everything, left us out. And we didn't have notebooks and things. That was wrong. And not only that, we didn't have notebooks or nothing. And I want to let that be known. Just what these people say, I've been fighting special ed for them. You got a double standard with the special ed. You hear all these groups come up here and tell you, won't you work with up at it? You don't work with none of us group. And our kids get shelved down. Some of them up here told me what they got. The kids go down and get the special ed. My grandkids and all of we didn't get none of it. And if you're going to be fair, you got to be fair. Another thing I noticed, every time we come and speak, something get wrong with the video. The last time, we never, when we are talking, all you see that our mouth. You don't want the public to hear what's going on. And I hear it over that they already suing the state for Brisbane and all of them in the courts now. And I told you all before, my lawsuit is on too. I'm arguing about the special ed too. So we're moving on that and hoping next week, another week, I think we got to go to the human rights. They want to all come up and say we can try to sell it. Otherwise, we got a part of it. We are not being treated right. We are not invited to no meeting. We are not troublemaker, but we're all kept out. This ain't no way you run a school system. And I'm going to tell you right now, you board members responsible this year. You don't want to talk to us. I come up here all the time trying to get. Another thing, you ain't hired a lot of teachers. We need a more minority and Spanish teachers in the school system. It's sad. Nobody's saying nothing about that. Another thing, finally, I'm going to say is that I don't think it's right for y'all to set up without the community involved about putting these kids and all over these principals. Now, look, I'm going to tell you right now, I think we should have something to say about that, too. And you pick who you want. Because some of these principals, we had some good principals in these school systems. And I'm going to tell you, I know I worked with them for 30-some years. But when they want to help the poor kids, you jump on them. So I want to make sure that this don't happen. And we would like to be a part of the process. Thank you very much.
Next speaker is Melanie Lynch.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm just here for support. I didn't want to speak.
Oh,
I apologize.
okay.
I didn't understand. the
Okay,
sign.
That's
well
okay.
then I believe our public comments are concluded.
Okay. Yes.
Sorry, I didn't see the sign in.
Oh.
We came in, is it okay?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, sure. We'll take
Please do.
additional
Sorry,
speakers.
I didn't know, and I sat back there. I thought there might be a lot of people who didn't want to take up your time. I just found out about this meeting this morning, so I'm here to represent the Rowayton PTA and the broader parent community.
And just for the record, name and address.
I'm sorry. My name is Christina Bailey. You need my address? It's 20 Possum Circle.
Thank you.
I'm the PTA co-president at Rowayton School, and I have children both at Rowayton Elementary and also at Rowayton Middle School. I'm here tonight to advocate for the full 3.9% increase in the budget in the operating funds for our school. I've had the privilege of hearing Dr. Adamowski speak now on 3 separate occasions. I don't know how many of you have ever been in a room with him when he's spoken to parents, but if you have the opportunity to be in one of those meetings and to speak with the parents afterwards, it's very, very overwhelming and enlightening and inspiring. So if you haven't had that opportunity, I encourage you.
That's why we hired him.
That's right, exactly, and that's why we need to support him. So we can't hire somebody and not give them the funds. I always leave feeling encouraged and extremely positive about the future of our schools. He is not only extremely knowledgeable, but innovative and refreshingly honest. That's a comment I've heard from a lot of parents. We appreciate your honesty so much. You admit what's wrong and don't try to hide it. So he understands what our district needs, what best practices are, and how we can move towards them. Our community has asked for change in our schools, and we have elected representatives who have pledged to support it. We cannot hire a strong leader and then refuse to provide adequate funding to accomplish our goals. This is an opportunity to send a message to parents and students that we are investing in the future of our schools. Let's take advantage of this forward momentum and fully fund the increase in the budget. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else, just in case they missed the sign-up sheet? No?
Can you add ELL to my list? Given the data in the report.
Sure.
Margaret, did you want to speak?
Yeah, thanks. Good evening, everyone. I'm Margaret Watt, 41 France Street.
And I'm just going to be short and sweet, but I want to fully support the superintendent's budget and just say to you all that Norwalk Sped Partners, we have been through this time and time again. And, you know, we are so enthusiastic and encouraged by Dr. Adamowski and the plans, but we have seen great plans and great evaluations too many times. And we don't want, and I know you all aren't on the Board of Ed because you want Norwalk to be the district that's behind the times, right? We haven't had the SRBI, we haven't had like really basic educational things in place, structures, policies for a really long time. And the funding hasn't been there. So to echo Jeff, you know, we want to support this, but I want to say that on special education in particular, those of us who have kids who have kind of struggled and kind of gone downhill and eventually been outplaced and hate being outplaced and absolutely don't want to be outplaced. My son got outplaced this year and wants to be here. And I'm a former public school teacher and I want him here. And I don't think he ever needed to be outplaced if we had had the capability, the training, the curriculum, the everything that all the other schools have. He's high functioning. This didn't need to happen. So what we need to do is make this investment now, this jump in the budget, and we need to keep that going forward. So whatever the battle is to make this happen, the school system needs to invest really significantly because, you know, we have deficits to bring up to par, and then we have this growing autism epidemic, just to pick one disability area, right? The latest study is now 1 in 45. So the investments just are going to have to be a long-term commitment, and I really ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, well, we will now move on to the next item, which is the actual approval of the 16-17 operating and capital budgets. At this time, to get discussion underway, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the 16-17 operating budget. We'll do
So
that
moved,
first.
Mr.
Moved by Mr. Anderson, second by Mr. Kasimis. Is there discussion on that motion? I have some prepared remarks that I wanted to make about the budget in general. First, I want parents and city officials to know that this budget strives to move the Norwalk Public Schools into a strong and permanent trajectory of reform and major improvements. One of the things that Dr. Adamowski has convinced the board of is that while the strategic plan that we adopted in 2014 is a strong one, it had a major weak spot, which is it lacked a theory of action for implementing it and making it last. The lack of a theory of action is why some of the reform efforts that we made under that plan have sputtered or gone off track, even with the best of intentions of the people who are trying to advance them. This budget is designed to support a theory of action will allow the reforms to take root and grow. Fundamental to that theory is the gradual implementation of student-based budgeting and the development of strong school governance councils that will no longer simply be discussion groups, but will now take active management responsibilities at their schools. With authority and responsibility comes accountability, and our plan includes a lot of this as well. First, in the ability of the central office to step in and take control of schools that are not managed well by NSGC, School Governance Council. And second, by a conscientious application of our new systems of teacher and administrator evaluations. The days of getting an exemplary review just for showing up for work are now gone. Finally, this budget reorients use of our grant funding so it's focused on providing the Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions that are essential if we're ever going to close the achievement gap. At our recent retreat, the board unanimously supported a mission for the Norwalk schools of raising the bar and closing the gap. Raising the bar means bringing Norwalk's achievement levels above the norm for the state of Connecticut, and closing the gap means eliminating the achievement gap between majority and minority students within our school system. We strongly believe that with the right theory of action, the right strategic plan, and the right management team, we can do this, that we can make Norwalk schools one of the most successful urban schools in the United States. Now, to the taxpayers who will have to foot the bill for this plan, let me tell you, I feel your pain. A majority of Norwalkers have no kids in our school system, and some of them are on fixed incomes. And increasing taxes on you hurts, and we are sympathetic to that. And that is why we and the staff scrubbed this budget for savings before it was proposed. That's why there are some positions that are being eliminated in this budget. That is why, from a starting point of over a 9% increase when they ran the first runs, we've dropped this down to 3.9%. Now, our commitment to running a lean and efficient school system from a fiscal point of view has not changed from the last 2 years, when our budget went up by the lowest percentage of any major component of the city's budget, 2.6% per year, which was less than half the rate of increase in spending for the police department, the fire department, the recreation parks department, and other departments in the city government. But this year, as many of you know, we've been hit with major cost increases due to special education and other factors that have come in, and we cannot avoid these any longer. If we do not address these issues, then the problem that Jeff had alluded to could materialize. We don't want to reach a situation where the special ed budget begins to cannibalize the regular education budget and set two groups of parents and teachers against each other. So sticking our heads in the sand is not going to make this problem go away. We need to aggressively address it and solve it. And to those of you who have been through, CREC reports and whatnot since your kid was 2 years old, I think we can genuinely say that we are treating it differently this time. We brought in CREC to give us the update, and as you know, Dr. Adamowski, as one of the speakers pointed out, is not afraid to give us warts and all reports on our school system. He doesn't bury his head in the sand or pretend the problems aren't real. So we brought CREC back in knowing full well they were going to give us a report that wasn't going to look good. But we needed to know what the problems were if we're going to be able to address them. In addition to that, we are running a professional search for a new special ed director. We are making that director a direct report to the superintendent. We've retained SERC, S-E-R-C, the state agency, to aid the new director for a full year as he or she moves forward with the long-term CREC reforms. Dr. Adamowski and his staff will be shortly presenting us with interim plans to implement CREC reforms that can be done fairly quickly without significant funding. And I've appointed a special Board of Education committee to oversee all of these changes under the chairmanship of Dr. Crevecoeur, who obviously has training and special expertise in this area. Failure to address the problems with special ed now will lead to more costs and higher taxes in the future. This is like those old TV commercials with the guy trying to sell oil filters, where you could say, you can pay me $10 now for the oil filter, you can pay me $1,000 later when your engine blows up. Now, I know that there are people, particularly our friends over on the Common Council next door, who are genuinely concerned about the impact on the taxpayers, and they've let us know they think that we could do okay with less than 3.9%. And they're right, we could do with less than 3.9%. If doing nothing to correct the problems of special ed is considered okay, or if doing nothing about the achievement gap is considered okay, if making no effort to fundamentally improve the school is considered okay. We could do that. We could sputter along, the way we've been sputtering along, but I don't recommend it. I also want to put this budget increase in context for people. As people who know me, I am a Reagan Republican. I am not a wild, big spender. I insisted, for instance, on creating a finance director position here, which we didn't even have a few years ago when we had the budget crisis in 12, so we could get somebody in here and straighten out our finances. And we've done that. So to put it in context, I had a spreadsheet prepared showing the percentage increases in the Board of Education budgets over the last 20 years. In 13 of those years, the budget increase exceeded 3.9%. And here are the approved budget increases for the Board of Ed from 1998 through 2008. 4.1, 4.2, 5.9, 5.2, 6.6, 4.9, 4.7, 2.8, 4.0, 4.0. Now, once the Great Recession struck in 2009, the budget numbers dropped below that. But the point is that a 3.9% increase, while not insignificant, I'm not minimizing that, is also not as large as many increases that have been approved in fairly recent times, along with a bunch of 4+% increases that were approved in the 1990s as well. I have another spreadsheet here where we calculated the budget increases for the Board of Education side of the budget. You know, we basically have the Board of Ed side of the budget and we have the city side of the budget. The city side covers police, fire, Department of Public Works, Recreation and Parks, etc. over the last 5 years. In the last 5-year fiscal budgets, the Board of Education budget went up $21.2 million, a 14.19% increase. The city side of the budget went up $25.1 million, a 19.16% increase, considerably greater than the school budget increase for that 5-year period. I make these points to show that the Board of Education in recent years has been consistently bringing in budgets that are leaner than the cities, and we have demonstrated and continue to demonstrate our fiscal responsibility. And this budget is no different. While taking on the seemingly intractable problems of special ed, implementing a whole new way of managing our schools and putting us on a trajectory to greatness, we still do it with a budget with a much smaller increase than this board received 13 times in the last 2 decades. As a former member of the Common Council and like Mr. Anderson of the Board of Estimate and Taxation, I understand the skepticism that some of our friends on those boards have learned to have about school budgets here years ago. I was on the Board of Estimate and Taxation when ridiculously out of control school budgets were brought into us by people who couldn't answer elementary questions about where the money was going. They were out of control, they were padded with hidden funds, and they were presented in a deliberately obfuscated manner. Okay? That ended 3 years ago. This board practices honest, transparent budgeting. What you see with this budget is what you will get. And so I urge the board to approve the budget, and I urge the council and the Board of Estimate to do likewise. Any other comments? All right, if hearing none, we'll proceed to a vote. All in favor of approving the budget, please indicate. And that is unanimous. Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is the capital budget. Chair would entertain a motion to approve the capital budget. Moved by Ms. Keys, seconded by Mr. Anderson. Is there discussion on the capital budget? Come on, don't make me do all the talking. I only wrote one speech for tonight. All right, if there's no discussion, I will point out, I'm not going to give a big speech, but I will point out that this 5-year capital improvements budget, capital budget, which totals $122.9 million in proposed spending, anticipates $31.8 million in state reimbursements for a net cost to Norwalk of $91.1 million, is a massive proposed investment in the Norwalk Public Schools. And it starts out this year with things that are pretty basic stuff, like replacing the windows at West Rocks Middle School before they all fall out in the next storm. District technology, furniture replacements, and things like that. But then in 17-18 through 2021 ramps up significantly to provide us the funding that we're going to need to make major enhancements to the physical plant, and quite frankly, as Dr. Adamowski has expressed, to either do major expansions of a number of schools or add new schools at a rate of, about one every 3 years? I think you said we need
for a total of 3 over the 10-year life of the facilities master plan.
Now, it's a sign of health for a city that you're a growing city, and Norwalk's population is growing, unlike many cities in Connecticut. The number of students in our schools is growing. Most school systems in Connecticut are shrinking. As Dr. Adamowski's pointed out, ideally, your ideal ratio is that you operate at about 90% of your capacity. The average school throughout the state of Connecticut is operating about 70% of its capacity. The schools in Norwalk are operating at 100% of their capacity. And in point of fact, if you added in all of the portables, we're actually over capacity. And the demographic projections that are coming out of the study indicate that the population is going to continue increasing. And so this capital budget plan anticipates that and tries to provide, additional facilities to adequately absorb the growing student body and to provide them with good physical facilities to be educated in. It's a big nut. This is only the first 5 years of what might be a 10 or even 15-year plan. It is not unprecedented in magnitude. Old timers who've been around, like the gray hair here, can remember something called the Schools for the New Millennium, which was started under Frank Esposito and continued under Alex Knopp, that completely rebuilt Brian McMahon High School, put the big addition on Norwalk High School, and did a whole bunch of other projects. That was about a $100 million commitment, and the city was able to absorb it. Under the brilliant leadership of the finance director, who now we've stolen from the city to manage our budgets. Although that sounds like a huge number, and it's not to be, laughed at, it is in the context of what the city has done manageable if you run it properly. So this is basically the first installment on what we feel is a needed program of improvement to what is. The major asset of the city of Norwalk. Our school buildings are not owned by the Board of Ed, they're owned by the city of Norwalk. We have control over them while we're operating them, but they are city assets. It's the biggest asset in the city, and this is a commitment to maintaining and upgrading that major asset. So if there's no other discussion, Chair would entertain a motion. We have the motion, I'm sorry. I will call for the vote. All in favor of approving the capital budget, please indicate. And that is also unanimous. And that, folks, is that. The Chair would entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Kazimis, is there a second? Mr. Anderson? All in favor? And the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you, Mr. Chair.